think a lot of us, when we actually go in the flow of building these chatbots, we kind of hit some stumbling blocks. I'm just curious if you have any kind of like beginner tips you could give us.
What you should do is write down what is the goal of this chatbot. Like that's the very step one. What is the goal? Step two is to actually write what's called a sample script. Chatbots are not meant to be human. Don't ask the user how their day is. Don't try to tell jokes or like have a personality that's like too gimmicky. Ultimately, you're trying to get them to the goal. The small businesses don't know what an AI automation agency is. If the AI automation agency model is too big, the only people making money are the course owners and like tools and stuff like that. The ideal scenario is that the use cases are getting bigger. And that's people who are trying to do like automate customer support, automate customer experience, automate FAQs, automate inbound calls, automate lead. 1,000 use cases that people could think of. Maybe go ask ChatGPT, what can you automate today?
So welcome to Flow Minds podcast. Today I'm with Gino. Today we are joined by Braden Ream, the visionary behind Voiceflow, to discuss the company's journey and discuss what the future holds. Welcome, Braden.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. So, Braden, I think we're all curious just to hear about the early stages. Obviously, Voiceflow is massive success, but we all want to know what kind of kicked it off for you.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly wouldn't say we're a massive success yet. I think we're less than 1% of what we want to be. So we're working on it. How we got started was actually building Alexa skills. So those are like the third-party apps on top of Amazon Alexa. And we found that the tooling in that space just wasn't very good. And so that led us to building a no-code Alexa skill building tool that then got us pulled into contact centers and chatbots. And, before you know it, you sort of have Voiceflow today, which is trying to be the most extensible collaborative platform empowered by a great community to build AI agents for any use case. We focus a lot on customer experience automation today, and customer support automation is that sort of the core use case for a lot of businesses. But if Voiceflow is to work, in 5 years, you can imagine you go to Voiceflow and it's almost like having an AI marketplace for talent. And you can hire customer support, you can do outbound sales, marketing, kind of anything that can be conversationally automated. You should be able to do that with Voiceflow. So that's what we're working towards long term.
Huge plans.
Huge plans, definitely. And a lot of our audience may not be aware of conversational design. Could you a little bit explain what is conversational design and why it is so important to make the chatbots using this technique?
Conversation design is essentially the application of user experience, UX, to conversational AI. And so, I don't think you necessarily have to call yourself a conversation designer to do conversation design, but most people are doing conversation design whether they realize it or not, if they are at all thinking about the user experience of chatbot development. And so we realized a couple of years ago that conversation design was such an afterthought for all the bot development platforms. It was always about what can you do, right? Like what is the functional cap of what's possible? And it's really important for platforms to think about that, but it doesn't matter how powerful something is if it's not elegant to use and like treats the user experience of the end user as something that's equally important, right? Probably the best way to say it is like, it doesn't matter if you can automate something if people can't use it and the user experience is horrible, right? It doesn't matter how good the automation is if it's like choppy, broken English, or it's dropping the responses, the questions make no sense. Like all that stuff's really important. And so we built Voiceflow as essentially a way to replace the spreadsheets, flowcharts, and all these other tools that people use to do conversation design. I'd like to think that Voiceflow sort of became the industry standard over the past couple of years now. And what's been interesting is with this large language model boom, initially sort of kicked off by ChatGPT, that has brought conversation design to an interesting spot where conversation design has traditionally been about the copy, and I think it's much more holistic now. It's about sort of the broader experience. And I think those conversation designers are trying to figure out, as we are, how does their role play into a world where the responses are not written by a human, they're written by a large language model. And it's almost just getting a little bit higher level. But that's a whole different topic we could get into. But that's to
Yeah.
answer your question. That's a little bit
Yes,
of an
yes.
overview on
So
conversation
a little,
design and even just where it is today.
a little follow up to this question. Like, could you give some tips on how to make this, how to make a design of, how to make the conversational design? Because I really uh, encountered this problem while making the chatbot for one client. So how to make it the most useful and make the most make it most valuable.
Yeah, really, if you have any tips for us in terms of building these conversational design, I think a lot of us, when we actually go in the flow of building these chatbots, we kind of hit some stumbling blocks. I'm just curious if you have any kind of like beginner tips you could give us.
Planning is like the most important thing.
Yeah.
Like what you should do is write down what is the goal of this chatbot. Like that's the very like step one. What is the goal?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Step two is to actually write what's called a sample script, and this is how would you like the conversation to go, right? Roughly speaking, like what would imagine you're creating an automated Starbucks barista. What would that conversation look like? Like basically write down what a conversation of ordering a coffee would look like. Then what you do want to do is you want to figure out what do I need in order for this conversation to be considered completed? What action am I taking? Is it an API call? Is it, what is it? What's the action? Is it just giving a piece of information? And in order to take that action, what are the things that I need in order to do it? So for example, for a coffee, maybe it's like the size, the type of the coffee, how are you paying, credit, app, like what is it? And then once you kind of have all these pieces, you have like a general flow of conversation. You know what the goal is, how that goal is achieved, what the action is, and you know what the things are that you need to actually take that action. Again, like, what entities it is. Then you go into the actual design of the conversation flow. And the conversation flow is essentially just the business logic. And when you're designing, it's important to understand that chatbots are not meant to be human. And I think a lot of people make this mistake. They design the bot thinking that because humans like to talk to humans, that the bot should therefore sound human. When you're designing a conversational interface, it's meant to be an interface, and that is it. You're not trying to automate you're not trying to build a person. And so don't ask the user how their day is. Don't try to tell jokes or like have a personality that's like too gimmicky. Ultimately, you're trying to get them to the goal. At least that's for customer support. Maybe if the goal of the bot is to be gimmicky, then that's a whole different thing. But you're trying to design an interface, and the persona of the bot should be in service of that interface. And so, I think those would be my sort of like main tips. And as the bots get larger, like let's say it's not the goal of the bot is customer support, and that might have several different things that it can do. Like it can handle tickets, it can do refunds, it can take an order. Then you would map out those flows in that same process. You would map out your NLU model, and you sort of like basically plan everything out, and then you go execute. And it's just going to be so much easier than, I know it's tempting, especially with a tool like Voiceflow, just to dive in and you're connecting blocks, just building. I get it. Like Voiceflow is super fun. I do the same thing sometimes too, but like I know that it's not an efficient way to design. You'll probably get to the same outcome, but it might take you twice as long because you spent so long you didn't think through the initial steps. You just started doing the work.
I think that's interesting because it probably leads on to a question I did have for you as well regarding collaboration with Voiceflow. If you could go a bit deeper in terms of collaborating with maybe someone who's helping you build the bot and just how Voiceflow has integrated that, because it is probably one of the most powerful features I've experienced in Voiceflow, that you can add other people, they can help you build. So if you could like go a bit deeper and explain that kind of area of Voiceflow.
Yeah. I mean, at the enterprise level, it's especially powerful because you often have design reviews, you have like developers, you have all these different stakeholders who need to be on the design at the same time. And especially as the designs get larger and larger, like, at some point you need everyone to be on this canvas at the same time. Collaboration is it's a core feature of Voiceflow's workflow. I think it's a core differentiator for us, and it's why we constantly keep harping back on like, I'll take this question in a more interesting angle. Like, you have a lot of platforms that are super outcome driven, and what I mean by that is like they're selling point solutions. So there's a lot of platforms out there where it's like you go to the H1 of the website of that company and it's like automate customer support. That is what they're trying to do. They're selling you a business outcome. And when you're selling outcomes, you're talking about ROI. You're talking about like the CSAT score, the deflection. Like here's all the outcomes that when you buy my product, you are going to get these outcomes. And when you think like that, what you then try to do is make the product as dummy proof as possible so that anyone can like use the product to get those outcomes, right? Voiceflow takes the opposite approach in that we assume that the people using the product are great and smart and creative and all that kind of stuff. And so we're just giving you the toolkit. We assume that you will figure out a way to get to whatever business outcome you want to get to. And so we're trying to put the power in the hands of the people. And when you do that, collaboration and like a focus on the process of creation is what we focus on a lot. We're not so ROI focused and like outcome focused. We're process focused because we believe that if you give people a great toolkit and they have the ability to have a great process, they will get to an even better outcome. It's almost like thinking, we believe that our customers know their customers better than we do, right? We believe that if we give you the ultimate toolkit, you'll find a way to build a better outcome than if we gave you like sort of a solution in a box. Here's our chat widget. Here's our customer support bot front end. Here's like how you should use the tool. Here's everything. And there's pros and cons to each approach. That's just our approach. And I think not all businesses are right for Voiceflow and vice versa. Generally, the problem with Voiceflow is it can be hard to use because it's super powerful, right? You can just do a lot of stuff with it. And so if you don't have full-time people dedicated at your business who are building this stuff, Voiceflow is probably just not a good solution. You should use something that's like out of the box more. So yeah, just talking about collaboration a little bit, like the highest level of strategy is we're trying to empower people and empower process, which then enables outcome versus trying to build towards an outcome, which means a very streamlined process and collaboration that's more limited because you're trying to limit it just to get to an easy outcome.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's awesome. I'm glad you took it down that direction.
Yeah. Prior to awesome Voiceflow, you did another project called Flare. How has this previous experience helped you make the Voiceflow such a good tool?
So Flare was a consumer product I built, there's a team of us, right? Like I was a very small part of it, and I think when you're building consumer products, you just realize how important like activation, which is like basically how to get people to value, onboarding, like how nice the app has to be. Like the bar for consumer is so high relative to business. Like Voiceflow is B2B software, right? We sell primarily to businesses. Even if it's a business of one, it's still a business. And so B2C, in order for you to subscribe something, like it can't look like shit. It has to be beautiful. It's got fun animation. Like the bar for you to pay $5 a month is so high relative to a business paying $5,000 a month. And I think having done B2C, I just sort of recognize that, and I'd like to think that we have a higher bar for quality because of that. Like we just try to build nicer software. Because my co-founders and I, we've all kind of done like B2C software before.
That's interesting, actually, because I've always thought that Voiceflow does have a really nice interface, even with other B2B softwares I personally use. And it's interesting to see how you've used your background in trying to do B2C first and then building a B2B kind of tool, but integrating kind of a user interface focus. So yeah, it's something that it's quite interesting to build on.
Yeah, it's B2B and B2C have different challenges. Like B2B is all about systems level thinking, because B2B products are just generally like larger. Like there's a ton of integrations. Like you have to expose APIs. You've got to have security. Like there's a lot you have to build basically. And so because of that, people just don't think about the interface versus with a consumer product, you're not exposing APIs. Like you don't have to be like SOC 2 compliant. You don't have to allow for customization of the product. It's, it's like very, you're thinking about probably scale of usage a lot more, but like the challenges are very different. And so I think because of that in B2B software, and rightfully so, people do not think about the interface as much, because it's like the interface is like 25% of the experience in B2B versus it's like 100% of the experience in B2C. So yeah, it's a different thing. But if you can do both well, then like you've got products like Linear, Loom, like these are great well designed products that happen to be in B2B, and they can rip apart legacy software because they have that slight edge of design.
That's a really interesting take. Yeah, but I want to bring it back in terms of something you mentioned earlier in terms of the expansion plan for Voiceflow. Could you elaborate a bit more in detail where you are looking to take Voiceflow in 2024, shall I say?
Yeah, I mean, you'll see a lot of changes. We actually, for a lot of the audience that's now found Voiceflow recently, this is the slowest we've ever shipped software publicly. We have never been this slow. And the reason for that is because we've been making just huge changes in the background. And I think next year you're going to start to see some of those big changes coming, is what I'll say. Continuing to focus on basically Voiceflow has three things that we care about: community, creation experience, and extensibility. And so the marketplace, for example, is a mixture of two of them. It's a mixture of the community and extensibility, right? Can we expose APIs to allow people to build their own stuff on top of Voiceflow? And then the community then we have a community to even do that, right? Creation experience is like, how nice is the creation? Like what can you build and how good does it feel to build it? Basically, sort of a 2x2 axis or axes. And that's it. That's Voiceflow's whole strategy, is just be really good at those three things: community, extensibility, creation experience. And yeah, I know you're kind of digging for more roadmap and stuff like that. I'll just have to say,
always are.
Yeah, I'll just say stay tuned. We have a lot of stuff coming that sort of follow along that strategy.
That's fair enough. That's fair. What about Nick? You want to kind of?
Yes, I wanted to ask about future a bit. So, are we moving from traditional web UI chat-based to chat-based UI, where like most websites or like the majority of the websites will have both interfaces?
I think it's really important for startups to not drink their own Kool-Aid, and I think it happens way too much. We've done it in the past. Like, this is me saying it from experience. It would be, if every single business had their primary interface as a chat interface, that's really good for Voiceflow. That's great. But I'm not, if we're just realistic about the future, chat interfaces are good at some things and visual interfaces are good at some things. And I think instead what probably ends up happening is that visual interfaces become way more dynamic. And it's not that visual interfaces become chat interfaces. It's that I think everything becomes conversational, but not conversational in the sense that it's like chat bubbles and stuff. I think you might actually end up having websites that change as you navigate them, and websites that change as you return to them. And the UIs become far more dynamic. And it might, it might feel like a chat interface in the sense that everything that you do with a brand is a conversation. When you buy something from Walmart, that's a conversation. You are saying, I want this thing, right? And then when you come back the next time, it's like, I also want this thing. When Walmart then reaches out and sends you coupons, they're sending you it's all one consistent conversation between you and the brand, right? And I think that the UIs might start to reflect that conversation. I think that's probably the best way to put it. The UIs might start to change over time. Chat interfaces, honestly, maybe you have your assistant that's sort of running around the screen or something, and that's an early rendition of it. I think the most efficient way would be to actually just change the UI itself. If you were to think about the ideal user experience. Because here's what I mean. Let's say a website like a big bank, super confusing, and you want to change your credit card limit. That's what you want to do. Today, you go to the website and you're going through 800 footer links, right? There's you're trying to find where's the button that brings me to the request of a credit card change limit. a chatbot might be a really good way to be like, hey, what do you need? And then, change chat limit. Okay, boom, there it is. Like, that's really fast. But that's almost like a Band-Aid on top of the visual UI. Visual UIs are just way faster at giving you information than chat is. Like, it's way easier to look and see than it is to read. And so I think the ideal world is that, like, you don't need the Band-Aid chatbot on top. You would probably just change the UI. But these are just like, we're so far out from all this stuff. Chatbots will continue to grow in importance as an interface. But I think, like, eventually you get into, like, everything's just going to get easier and easier and better and better. I don't think chat interfaces are the be all end all. I think that we start to think about conversations very holistically. Like, in 2 or 3 years, I think Voiceflow is not just about what is said, it's about what is done, right? Like, you might be designing something like a conversation flow on Voiceflow that has no words at all. It's like, user bought this thing. I sent them a coupon. Next time they showed high intent of something on the coupon, they visited the website 3 times. They read a blog post, boom, send them this message. Like, that might be what a conversation designed on Voiceflow looks like in like 2 years. There's like barely any text or, like chatbots or chatbot messages.
That sounds really interesting, particularly because of with everything in terms of ChatGPT vision. I'm sure you've probably come across all these updates with ChatGPT. I'm just curious, I'm probably going to lead you more down that route in terms, where do you see the future in terms of this whole kind of conversational AI? Where do you see it going? Because of last month, we've had, ChatGPT vision, we've had the kind of just so many updates in the world, and ChatGPT voice, where you can actually speak in and get responses. It's crazy what's happening. So,
yeah, I mean, I think it just goes into, again, like, expanding the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Not just what you share and upload, but like, because those are explicit, right? Like, when you share an image, you're explicitly saying something. I think you'll start to get into implicit triggers for the conversation as well. Brands will just be building AGIs basically, and it's like, if you walk up to a human and you could either give them a PDF, you could give them an image, you could give them a receipt, you could tell them you bought something, you could just give them a frowny face, you could just, you say that you're really unhappy that day. Like, you just give them all these different inputs, right? Sentiment analysis, like triggers, like whatever it might be. And it will be able to process it, what that means, and then take the appropriate action. And so, you're seeing it like stitched together one by one today, like photos, text inputs. But I think eventually it's the full spectrum. It can take full spectrum input, not just like multimodal of like traditional modalities, but like kind of anything. Like, literally anything can be inputted. And then it will be able to process that and generate a response also with the appropriate modality. And I think that's like any input modality, any output modality. Like, it detects that you are sad and it chooses that the best appropriate response is a video of a cat or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
being able to mix in inputs and mix outputs based off of that, like, and that's the intelligence in the middle, is like the determination of like, what should I do next? Because I mean, that's ultimately what AI and intelligence is, right? It's just like really good predictions of what to do next based off what just happened.
That's awesome. I'm sure, Nick, you've got a question that
Yes, I'm leading to the question that actually caused our meeting today. So we have seen the rise and the fall of interest in AI automation agency, and I recently shared the post on Twitter on Google Trend on Twitter, which shows that the AI automation trend is back to its bottom in June, to its June bottom. So is AI automation still dead, and should we go to the SMMA, or should we still be consistent and work in AI automation field?
Yeah, we had this chat internally. I think that AI automation as a concept just makes sense. Like, kind of how I view it is, there's like millions of businesses out there, and many of them, especially the small businesses, do not have the skill set, the desire, the time to be able to create automation. someone is going to have to do that work for them. And like, it's kind of just that simple. It's kind of like, I think about like a Shopify store, millions of stores out there. Shopify can always try to make their platform easier and easier and easier to use. But there's always going to be a certain point at which like someone's like, just do it for me. And so as long as you think that AI automation is actually valuable, and that's like A, and then B, there's businesses out there who are willing to pay, then like if you believe those two things are true, then it's like inevitable that you're going to have AI automation agencies.
Yeah.
I think what you had is like a big pop of hype, but what the industry needs to do is figure out concrete use cases that just like the model is an AI automation agency, but the service needs to be standardized because businesses don't know that they're looking for an AI automation agency, right? Businesses know that they're looking to automate, I don't know, like lead qualification, right? And an AI automation agency, that might be the use case that they're building off of. But like business, you know, like that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's more creation of agencies than there was exploration of use cases. And you know, I see real estate agents, all this kind of stuff. As long as people are actually delivering value, you can figure out for yourself if this is a real trend or not. Someone should talk to the real estate agents and be like, "Hey, you worked with X agency to set up Y use case. Is that valuable? How valuable? Like, are you willing to pay $100 a month, $200 a month, $300? Like, what is it?" And if it is, then you kind of have your answer, right? Like, there will be an industry there. Yeah, I just kind of go to like first principles on that stuff. My opinion is automation is valuable. SMBs, there's a lot of them out there, and not everyone's going to be able to do it themselves. Therefore, there will be a services layer that does the implementation and maintenance of these things.
Thank you a lot.
100%. I'm someone who works with marketing-based clients also, and one thing that I have been looking into a lot is in terms of just the automating that kind of lead follow-up and trying to integrate, even if it's calls, sometimes you need to call a lead. If we can integrate AI where the AI could call and receive the information, then that is a massive value add I've been seeing anywhere. And that's something that I've seen a lot of businesses I've worked with clamoring for that. And that's something I'm looking to explore deeper. But yeah, that's my kind of opinion that, like you said, if there's a use case for it, if you can show that it's valuable to a certain business, and obviously it's not dead.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be like, my personal opinion is it's going to be like huge. Because I just think about the number of businesses out there that like paid an agency to implement a WordPress website or like a Webflow website. And are all those businesses going to want to automate something at their business? I think so. Now, some of those use cases today might not be there. Like my suspicion is like lead qualification, FAQs, internal task automation. But the only challenge is that's kind of bespoke per business. It's not really that standardized. So that's actually a bit of a tougher one for agencies to like really build like a marketing funnel on top of. But yeah, lead qualification. And then there's a lot of stuff around e-commerce. I'm not super well versed in e-commerce, but I'd imagine it's anytime you have a volume of customers, that's where automation opportunities are, right? And e-commerce certainly has a lot of customers. So I would encourage folks who are in the space to try to like think about use cases that deliver true ROI and value. And then just think about how many businesses you think are out there that would need something like that. And you can kind of come to your own conclusion. The AI automation agency, like that's just saying, hey, this is a model of a type of agency that primarily focuses on automation use cases for like SMBs and mid-markets. The search volume for that type of agency is going to fluctuate all over the place. What really matters is like, how's the search volume for those use cases? You know what I mean? Because like the people who are searching for the agency are the people who are trying to make money by selling the services. The real indication is how many SMBs want to, qualify lead gen or whatever it might be, whatever that use case is.
I love that perspective. Kind of, you've changed the perspective for a lot of people probably watching this instead of just the model, the use case. See if people actually are looking for a specific area to improve their business with automation instead of just, I need to build an AI automation agency. But there's
So,
one.
like, I would argue, like, go. I don't know what the answer is. Maybe it's wrong, but like, maybe do a follow up with this clip and the tweet that you put out, which would be like, look at search volume for like ChatGPT for my business, something like that. You know what I mean? Like, what are the business owners looking for? Because the AI automation agency is the thing being sold to the people who are doing the services. It's not the demand of the services itself.
Yes. So people just probably try to accomplish these services, and they understood like probably not that easy, and a lot of people just quit or something. I don't know.
Yeah, like the small businesses don't know what an AI automation agency is. So like the search, in fact, you as an agency person would want the search volume to be low. And then you'd want the search volume for the use cases to be high, because then you have less competition to deliver the same services to. If the AI automation agency model is too big, the only people who are going to be making money are the course owners and like tools and stuff like that. The ideal scenario is that the use cases are getting bigger, and that's people who are trying to do like automate customer support, automate customer experience, automate FAQs, automate inbound calls, automate lead, like those. There's probably 1,000 use cases that people could think of. Maybe go ask ChatGPT, what could you automate today with T?
That's true.
Anyways, I have to hop off I'm actually almost right up. Any sort of like final questions I can help?
Just the only last one we've got for you, Braden. Thank you. Is I think recently we have seen Voiceflow release like their own marketplace plugins. We're just kind of curious, what's your kind of plans in terms of that? Are you looking to really like incorporate more people into Voiceflow, build their own bots? We're just curious in that domain.
Yeah. So our whole strategy is basically predicated on three things: community, integration experience, and extensibility. Plugins, marketplace, like we want these people to build businesses on top of Voiceflow. Selfishly, what that allows us to do is only focus on the core toolkit, right? Because we don't have to build these things now. And so, like we're not going to make, if someone's selling like a Voiceflow skin for like $10 a month, like Voiceflow is not going to make that money. But what is going to happen is that $10 a month is going to support that developer, who's then going to be able to build more Voiceflow features, which means Voiceflow is going to become even more capable as a toolkit. And like, we're just going to be able to focus and become like absolutely world-class at what we want to be, which is that fundamental core toolkit. Everything on top, like the web chat skin itself, integrations with other channels, anything that is not building an agent, we do not like care about. And someone else can build a business on top. Like, people should be building Voiceflow analytics panels. Like, we're not going to do this stuff. We have no desire. And like, there's an opportunity for these people because we have, a good chunk of the Fortune 500 now using Voiceflow. Those are like customers who are going to start looking for like Voiceflow supported tools to like do other things, right? And so, we're really excited by it. I think for us, we see that as the path to build like we want to build like a Shopify type company where it has a large ecosystem of like agencies, large ecosystem of like developers, templates. Like, I think that's how you build like the biggest company, and that's kind of how we're focused.
Awesome.
Braden, really appreciate
Braden,
you.
We do appreciate you taking the time.
Yes.
Go on.
And like if people watching and still really interested about learning about Voiceflow, where can you recommend them to go?
Twitter would be good. I'm on there at Ream Braden.
Okay, cool. Thank you a lot for your time, and hopefully see you again sometime again. Yeah, have a great day.
Of course. Thanks, guys.